The torchlit corridors of the water gardens lay quiet, save for the hushed murmur of flowing fountains and the occasional crack of sea salt in the warm night air. Yet every servant who glided past the tall latticed windows felt the change, a hollow in the lungs of Doran itself. Oberyn Martell's heart had stopped 3 days past across the narrow sea in King's Landing, crushed beneath the gauntleted fist of Sir Gregor Clegane, while half the realm looked on. In the green, overly tended courtyards of the capital, it had sounded like spectacle. Here, beneath the copper-rurred moons that hung over the stepstones, it felt like a murder of bloodline, of promise and possibility, and the rumor curled through Sunspear like a desert storm that had found an unguarded door. Prince Doran sat alone on a carved teak bench fashioned in the likeness of two fighting spearmen, their ash hafts interlacing to form the armrests. The still night air kept his sweat damp against his brow. Arthritis gnawed each knuckle with the persistence of a sand midge. Yet it was not pain that made him linger instead of seeking his chambers. It was silence, for quiet was the kingdom in which he still ruled unchallenged. A parchment lay on his knee, the seal already cracked, the official report from King's Landing carried by Raven. Cold, perfunctory, the words of a clerk who had never seen Oberyn's grin. The faint scuff of slippers on mosaic announced Illyria Sand. She did not bow, nor pause for permission. She knelt before him in a whisper of green silk, dark eyes reflecting the lantern's low flame. Her voice was raw from screaming when she spoke. He was laughing, they say. Laughing when the mountain struck him, laughing as if victory already lay in his palm. Doran would have offered comfort had there been any. He reached for her hand, fingers swollen and stiff, and found them enfolded in her own grip that shook like reeds in the wind. My brother always believed joy itself could be a weapon, he murmured. He would not die bowed. Yet he is dead all the same, Illyria said, rising. She turned, pacing one step, two, the hem of her skirt, brushing the floor with a hiss. The mountain lives, and my Oberyn is food for carrion crows. Anger rots in me, my prince. It festers. Anger can be harnessed, Doran replied, though he felt the heat of it in himself. It was as foreign to him as gall to a peach, but anger was there, slow and simmering. Oberyn had died chasing justice for Elia, for Rhaenys and Aegon, for the long-dead children whose ghosts haunted the Iron Throne. The Dornish had swallowed that grief for nearly 2 decades. They would not swallow Oberyn's. Illaria's breath hitched. The sand snakes are already gathering swords, she said. Obara rides, as if she means to catch the sunrise. Nymeria counts coin to buy men, shameless enough to cross any border. Tyen prays with knives beside her bed. They will act with or without you. Doran closed his eyes. A gouty prince might withstand daughters drunk on vengeance for a time, but not the roar of all Dorne behind them. Send word, he said at last. We assemble in the old palace at dawn. All daughters, lords, and captains who swear the speared sun summon their strength beneath our roof. I will be carried down to them and speak. Ellaria bowed her head. They will come armed. They may, but they will stand before their prince armed with more than steel, memories, sorrows, wrongs unrepented. I know what song they expect me to sing. He smiled without mirth. I may surprise them yet. Dawn bled across the horizon like a cut wrist, turning the sky above Sunspear first amber, then garnet. The old palace, a sun-bleached labyrinth of half-open courtyards and shaded loggias, filled with nobles whose bloodlines traced to the first Rhoynar crossing and sellswards, whose lineages mattered only as far as their coin purses stretched. Bannerless wanderers stood shoulder to shoulder with proud lords of the Planky town. Camp followers pressed against silk-clad ladies whose dagger sheaths were worked with tourmalines in the shapes of tears. Doran's litter halted at the threshold of the water court. 2 knights of the Winding Way lifted him gently into his wheeled chair and rolled him toward the raised dais, where his father's carved throne awaited. Murmurs stilled into a hush, broken only by the splash of a lonely fountain. It was said that sound carried strangely beneath the palace's high arches, but in that moment, even the sea seemed to pause its breathing. "My people," Doran began, voice steady though the chair trembled beneath his palms, "I grieve with you." A wave of quiet anguish broke across the hall. Oberyn was the gleam upon the Martell spear, the boldness to my patience. He sought redress for our sister's murder, for the murder of her children, for the murder of our pride. Some may say he courted fate by championing Tyrion Lannister. Noon. Low growls answered him. The name Lannister hissed like brine on coals. But Oberyn believed that justice sits higher than crowns, higher than houses, higher than dragons. A strange echo rippled through the crowd at that word. Dragons rarer now than rubies, yet it lingered in every Dornish heart that beat to old Rhoynar rhythm. If justice has failed him, then Dorne must not. The Sand Snake stepped forward as one, a bara in boiled leather still crusted with salt from long riding. Nymeria cloaked in shimmering violet tape, a curved blade at each hip, tiny with pale gold, hair plaited like a rope of sunlight, hands folded demurely though her smile cut like glass. Ilaria stood behind them, not as a supplicant, but as a pillar. Obara's voice rang out, "Vengeance!" The word bounced against marble and came back larger than life. "Justice!" Nymeria cried. "Fire and blood," whispered Tiny, and the 3 became a chord that shivered spines. Doran raised one roomy hand for silence. "Yes," he said, and some small shock rippled again because they had expected him to scold their fervor with caution. Vengeance can be righteous, but it must be guided. Justice can correct the scales, but it must be measured. I have been patient, too patient, many think. Yet a day has come when patience without purpose is a cloak that smothers the heart. The Iron Throne has cost Dorne an unnumbered fortune in tears. So be it. Tears may salt water, but they also birth storms. Nei, didn't damen. Was bunt. 1,000 throats roared approval. Blades flashed as if instinctive, a forest of steel flowering under the marble sky. "Yet hear me," Doran continued, letting the silence seep back. "If we march, we do not march alone. The Reach festers beneath the Tyrell Rose. The Stormlands crumble. The North bleeds beneath a bastard's cruelty and Bolton flames. Everywhere, a Lannister lion's paw presses too hard. The realm is scabbed with old wounds. It will break." He let that sink like a dagger slowly twisting. "We shall be that strike. Spears of Dorne draw up not only to avenge my brother, but to end the reign that mocks the realm. We go north, first to gather the salt and stone lords who have bent too long, then to seize the neck and draw the north to our cause, not as conquerors alone, but as liberators. And when the dust of the march settles, the Iron Throne will discover what it is to need." Shouts crashed like surf. Lords of the Greenblood embraced sellsword captains. Bastards of the Stepstones shouted over the heads of priests. Doran turned to his daughters. "Obara, you take 300 spears across the Prince's Pass. Ride swift and unseen to the Dornish marches. Rally every discontented knight whose purse has been tightened by Mace Tyrell's taxes." Obara bowed stiffly. "I will leave before sunset. Nymeria, you sail. The Lemonwood fleet awaits. Make for Old Town by way of the Shield Islands. Rumor travels faster than gulls. Let rumor say Dorne rises for all who hunger for a freer realm. Gold, wine, silk, whatever bribes you need, spend it. Nymeria smiled, knives flashing. Briberies but persuasion with jewel-bright wings. Diane, he said more softly, you will accompany me. We ride at the vanguard of the main host. I will need your voice, and sometimes your daggers, when the bannermen meet in council. Tynene's curtsy radiated innocence. I am your dagger, father. Ellaria watched them, grief changing tint to something like hope. And I? She asked. You stay, Doran told her. Hold Sunspear and the Water Gardens. If our enemies turn southward, the children will need their mother. He laid a hand upon hers. I promise we will scatter our foes far from these walls before they glimpse your banners. Ellaria bit her lip, but nodded. When the assembly dispersed, the Water Gardens throbbed with preparation. Camel caravans loaded grapes, dried limes, and goatskins of water. A red snake curled across the horizon, the first hint of the Martell host coiling outward toward the mountains. Word of Oberon's death had reached Highgarden before the raven's wings cooled, but reply from Lady Olenna came broken by barbs. Who can mourn a man who invites a duel by dancing within a viper's fangs? Mace Tyrell puffed under tapestries, boasting a golden rose, vowing loyalty to Tommen Baratheon, unaware that his own bannermen whispered of fertile fields ruined by iron levies to feed Lannisport's appetite. By the time Obara Martell crossed the Red Mountains into the marches, scattered knots of hedge knights joined her rather than raise sword against. Cousins of fallen Stannis supporters, stewards cast off from the old Stormlords, even a company of silent sisters who tossed aside their hoods to reveal shaven scalps and eyes burning for reckoning. They marched under the Halfdawn, a lengthening spear that glimmered brawn. In the docks of Lemonwood, Nymeria's ships, 20 long galleys, each trimmed with crimson sails, slipped out upon a tide that smelled of kelp and grave marker salt. Sailors from the Basilisk Isles spat superstitions overboard, and a pod of dolphins followed them, keening like mourners. But Nymeria took it for omen. Oberyn's spirit guiding them north, laughter breaking upon the waves. And at Sunspear's gates, Doran Martell, born lame yet unbowed, climbed into a wheeled tower of cedar, strapped atop a sand-salt drawn by 6 white camels. Horn blasts announced him, a low mournful note that shifted at each courtyard into a clarion call of war. Behind him flowed banners crimson and gold, orange and russet, as though sunset itself poured through the gates, a spectacle to shame any northern summer. Some 2,000 Dornish spears marched the first day, 3,000 the next, fed by rivers of small folk who brought barrels of water and wheels of hard cheese. Mothers handing sons to battle with dry eyes, and fathers singing songs that had not been heard since Aegon's conquest. Every mile deeper into the Red Mountains, the host grew like a thundercloud given shape. Necessity forged discipline where none had been demanded before. And the Stepstone mercenaries, seeing coin in unity, drilled beside proud young heirs whose surnames ended in Dane, Blackmont, Alarion, and Corga. When the Martell host reached Skyreach, Lord Torrhen Gargalen opened his gates without hesitation. He dined Doran beneath ancestral banners, listening as Tyne poured honey-poison promises into his ear about trade routes unblocked by Old Town tolls. By dawn he pledged 300 mounted lancers to the march. The steppe was small on the map of Westeros, yet it rippled outward. Each new lord who bent the knee to Dorne's purpose lent momentum to something that looked less like revenge, and more like revolution. Summer rains sharpened the scent of pine as Obara crept along the narrow path above the Weeping Ridge. Below, a Tyrell patrol wound its way across the lowlands. 50 green-cloaked soldiers arrayed around 3 covered wagons, heavy with seed grain bound for Bitterbridge. Obara watched their disciplined pace, noting which captain signaled brakes, how the wagons lagged behind the spear points. She counted to 17, then raised her spear in silent salute. Dornish screaming arrows hissed from the shadows. The first volley slew horses, throwing the line into confusion. The second volley hammered shields. Obara darted through broken ranks, spear spinning, iron kissed iron, her braid lashing like a whip. She left the captain gurgling in dust, eyes wide toward a sky that offered no mercy. The grain wagon burned, smoke rising like a black banner visible for leagues. She let one wounded squire flee toward Highgarden with the tale. Dorne had crossed the marches and carried fire. Days stretched into a relentless cadence of raids. Villages under Tyrell banners awoke to the Sunhunt spear painted on their granaries, but their folk found Dornish soldiers buying bread at honest price. Bread and coin won hearts faster than swords alone. By the time Mace Tyrell gathered forces to repel this snake incursion, Nymeria's fleet reached Old Town under cover of fog. She did not anchor in the Hightower's gaze. Instead, she sailed past the city's shining spires toward the less regulated quays of Whispering Sound. There, in Alastaine taverns, she found cobblers denied leather for silver stag, farmers whose pigs had been confiscated for crown levies, even acolytes of the citadel whose links tarnished before they could afford fresh robes. Honeyed wine unlocked their tongues. "The crown feasts while you starve," she told them, swirling a goblet. "Ours is a march for the common heartbeat of Westeros. Join us, and the next harvest belongs to those who sowed it." Gold changed hands in quiet corners. By dawn, smuggler captains with black-sailed cogs swore to ferry grain north free of toll. The river Rhoynar, long sundered from its mother stream, found new tributaries in hearts desperate for change. Nymeria bought singers too. Bold, bawdy voices carried her invented ballad, the Viper's Lament, up every cobbled street. Soon urchins whistled its refrain beside the Honeywine merchants, and Old Town's apprentices hummed it while coiling ropes. Lori took shape, a prince wronged, a realm suffocated, a rising desert storm. When the Hightower guards finally noticed, the song had already danced from lip to ear as far north as the Mander. Meanwhile, in King's Landing, Queen Cersei sipped Hippocras and pretended the realm obeyed her not. Tommen played with Sir Pounce, while ravens foretold disquiet. Reach granaries burned, Dornish sails upon the Arbor Strait, rumors of a Martell host crossing the Boneway. The small council argued supply lines and fealties, but each whisper of Dorne's progress frayed Cersei's composure anew. She ordered new levies, yet gold cloaks deserted for want of pay. She commanded Pycelle to ravage maester chains for more ravens, yet the birds grew thin and flightless with overwork. In the Tower of the Hand, Qyburn unrolled reports in neat script. "Your Grace, the Dornish host numbers at least 12,000 and swells daily. They advance on the Stormlands, and word suggests the remnant Baratheon lords might open their gates." Cersei slammed a jeweled goblet, crimson wine splashing across the table. "They will not. We still hold Storm's End, with half a garrison and dwindling stores." Qyburn reminded gently, "Your Grace, might I suggest forging alliance with the Ironborn? Balon Greyjoy's heir has raised fleet again. He will sack any coast for promise of plunder. If we lure him against Dorne's supply lines, I will not stoop to parley with fish-stink traitors." Cersei sneered, though her stomach twisted. Pride and fear warred behind her eyes, like twin lions eating the same prey. Tyrion's cell remained empty now that the imp had vanished, flelled, perhaps aided, or so Cersei's nightmares claimed. Oberyn's death should have secured the trial, yet instead it birthed rebellion. The irony cut deeper than the lion's tooth. Back in the Dornish vanguard, sand gave way to stunted ash and cedar as Doran's host wound through the stone, way past. Cold winds slipped fingers down collars, unused to bite. Dornishmen wrapped bright scarves tighter, but spirits soared. They camped within sight of Storm's Drum, an outlying watchtower of the marches, and Tiny moved among soldiers with jars of spiced wine, laughter parting tents like lamplight. She took confession from boys barely grown, from graybeards who had once seen dragons circling Harrenhal, and she gave each small talisman, a peach pit carved into a spearhead, a dried bloom from a water garden pool. "Remember home," she whispered, "for home marches with you." Doran called his captains beneath a crimson-striped pavilion. Maps sprawled across lacquered chests. Candles flickered over tokens shaped like lizards, flowers, and lions. "We press towards Storm's End," he said. "If Lord Penrose yields, we secure Blackwater Bay from the south. If he resists, we siege lightly and split forces to the King's Road." His fingertip traced the long, white river of stone running north. "Word from the north speaks of Bolton cruelty worse than rumor. If the Starks still breathe, they will need allies." "A long march," observed Sir Demon Sand, bastard of God's grace, plucking a rook token from the board. "Winter's tail brushes those lands already." Doran smiled thinly. "Then we carry summer with us." Obara's raiders lit signal fires upon the peaks. From crest to crest, flames leapt, a chain of dragons made of light. Far below, Reachman patrols watched groundless constellations flicker into being and wondered whether the gods themselves had come down to walk. Night fell heavy with promise, yet amid triumph, small tragedies blossomed. A Dornish sentry found butchered beside a stream, his throat parted like ripe fig. Obara traced the slash, too clean for bandits, too cruel for soldiers. Eyes narrowed, she read the scene, tracks of bare feet hardened by sea salt, discarded eel nets. Ironborn scouts, she muttered into the hush. The Krakens had answered Cersei's call after all. Red Dawn saw spears braced for coastal assault. But Obara knew the land war could stagnate if Greyjoy longships raided supply from the sea. She sent word to Nymeria, the Kraken coils. Nymeria received the raven at the mouth of the Mander. She read, lips thinning, then called her first mate. "Turn us south for Slughook Point," she ordered. "We bait the Kraken in its own salt." The fleet tacked hard, crimson sails billowing like gouts of blood in the rising sun. Many leagues north, in Winterfell's broken Great Hall, Roose Bolton listened to reports of a southern storm. He stroked a flayed man's sigil on his ring, pale eyes unreadable. "The Martells test King's Landing," he said at last. "Let them carve each other. Winterfell stands secure." But even as he spoke, the ghost of Eddard Stark walked those halls in the minds of small folk, chilled by new taxes and cruel sport. And in the Wolfswood, banners stitched with grey dire wolves rustled in secret camps. Each torch lit a vow. If a Dornish spear point pierced the south, the north might yet howl for vengeance of its own. Storm's End loomed before the Martell host like a lonely mountain of stone, its drum tower cutting the slate sky. Lord Penrose, gaunt and stooped, wore Baratheon black and gold, but resignation glazed his eyes. He met Doran at the causeway, raising no weapon. "I have 300 men," he said. "Half can scarcely draw bowstrings after the last winter cough. I would not see them die for a crown that does not feed us." Doran inclined his head. "Then do not. Open your gates, and your men may keep their posts under my banner. Storm's End shall stand for the realm, not the throne." Penrose hesitated, but thunder rolled and gulls screamed as if in answer. He bowed, the motion cracking his back like kindling. "Storm's End is yours, Prince of Dawn." Tyne placed her hand upon the battlements that evening, eyes closed, feeling history vibrate beneath the stone. The castle whose walls had repelled dragons now flew the red sun, pierced by spear. And somewhere west along the coast, Nymeria's crimson sails vanished into mist to meet iron on water. Nymeria found the Greyjoy raiders near Shield Islands under Half Moon. Black hulls carved silence, Kraken banners hung limp in the damp. She ordered lanterns doused, oars shipped, and let current drift her galleys into striking distance. Then she signaled. 100 arrows whistled starboard, 100 more port. Flaming tips breeding sudden dawn. Iron-born fighters scrambled, but Nymeria was already leaping rail to rail, twin blades flashing in moon-silver arcs. Salt spray tasted of copper. Screams rose, snapped, vanished beneath waves. She left one longship untouched, but bound, its crew gagged, sails shredded, and loaded survivors into her hold. "Sail to King's Landing," she told the reluctant ironborn captain, pressing a carved snake pommel into his palm. "Tell Cersei Lannister, the sea is not hers to summon." The captain spat. "You win tonight, woman, but Krakens remember." "Then remember my name," she answered. "Nymeria Sand of Dorne, whose ancestress crossed seas larger than your entire drowned kingdom." She turned as her men fired the captured ships, night igniting behind her in pillars of oily flame. Reports reached Cersei within days. Martell's hold Storm's End, Greyjoy raids repelled. Tyrell supply lines cut. Each phrase tightened a garrote around the so-called Queen region. Jaime's return from River Run offered no solace. His stump of a right hand ached with phantom fury, but he could not swing sword enough to slay a host. Marguerite Tyrell's smiles grew brittle, more apology than confidence. Her father's ghost whispered caution, but Cersei's pride strangled counsel. She ordered Sir Gregor, on small breathing after Qburn's foul arts, to ride at head of royal hosts south. Yet the mountain moved slower than rumor, and his presence rotted morale. Foot soldiers muttered that death itself marched in their columns. Meanwhile, Doran dispatched envoys to White Harbor, to River Run, even to the Eyrie. Each letter bore Oberyn's seal recreated in black wax, a viper coiled round a broken spear. Some maesters trembled to open them, fearing poison, yet found only words. To the wronged, the letters began. The Martell spears ride not for conquest, but for the realm's rebirth. Join us and share in a peace built on memory of suffering, not on denial of it. Men, do thou nourish the disease of Kashin, shot, and men whose hearts ached for lost brothers, lost daughters, lost kings began to weigh alliance against despair. At Storm's End, the Dornish host feasted on stewed crab and river oats. Musicians plucked citherns, knights gambled silver seashells. Yet war never sleeps. Scouts rode in breathless, Lannister banners massing along the Roserat, a golden tide under the command of Lord Randall Tarley, fierce and uncompromising, bolstered by fresh sellswords, sworn to coin heavy with Casterly Rock's stamp. Obara sharpened her spear beneath the ramparts that night, sparks flitting like fireflies. "Tarley knows this ground," she told Sir Daemon. "He will strike at night, disciplined without flourish." Sir Daemon scratched stubble. "Then we rob him of night, force battle under sun where our spears outflank." Doran convened a council. The plan formed swift and silent. Faint retreat through the rainwood. Draw Tarley's force down the coast road. Then spring ambush beneath Weeping Bay's chalk cliffs. The tides would trap Lannister heavy horse in sucking sand. Dorne's light spears would sting, withdraw, sting again. 1,000 scorpions pricking a lion to madness. Yet for all strategy, Doran felt a distant tremor. The North calling. Ravens from White Harbor bore cryptic optimism. The pack remembers. If stock men marched south too early, they might clash with Dorne before alliance. Timing now was a blade's edge. Dawn before battle painted the rainwood in bruised purple. Mist clung to mossy trunks like spiderweb gone wild. Obara's raiders struck first, small fires at Tarley's outer supply train to breed confusion. Horns sounded. The Reach army shifted in heavy ranks toward smoke, and straight into the funnel between dunes and forest. When the sun peeled mist away, Dornish banners snapped bright against pale cliffs. A roar rolled across the bay. The lion met the sun. Tarly's cavalry charged, hooves pounding wet sand. Dornish skirmishers broke lines of sight with smoke bombs fashioned from pine sap and peppers. The horses screamed, eyes streaming. Obara led a wedge of spearmen into the flank, spears angled low to hamstring mounts. Blood mingled with brine. Somewhere a war horn wailed like a dying god. Yet Tarly pressed, discipline forged in reach fields, unflagging. His archers found gaps, black-shafted arrows felling Dornish youths. Doran watched from a wheeled tower set upon a dune, hands clenched white. He felt each loss as a nail hammered into Oberon's coffin anew. Yet he dared not send reserves too soon. Tyne sat beside him whispering prayer to the mother, or perhaps to the stranger, for mercy or for ruthlessness, whichever fate answered sooner. Then, as the tide reached its height, Nymeria's crimson sails appeared behind the Lannister lines, gliding upon mirrored sea like knives. War galleys beached swift, ramp doors flung wide. Sand poured soldiers in scaled leather the color of sunset. Nymeria herself strode first, blades catching morning glare, her laughter rising to meet Obara's war cry. Tarly's rear guard spun too late. The Reach shield wall buckled as though struck by storm surge. Chaos reigned, but not for long. Under coordinated signals, 3 horn blasts, then silence. The Martell captains pressed pincer. Light spears pinned cavalry against incoming tide. Archers rained barbed shafts upon clustered shields. Horses screamed. Men drowned beneath weight of armor. Tarly fought to maintain order, but his voice drowned in cacophony. When a stray arrow pierced his helmet visor, the golden tide receded, broken. By dusk, the beach lay littered with splintered shields that pulsed with dying embers. Doran's physicians tended wounded, enemy and ally alike. Tyne walked among captives, knives sheathed, offering water, a smile, a promise. Swear unbent loyalty and live to see tomorrow. More than half accepted. Word rode ahead of the army faster than any raven. The Lion's Reach force shattered, Dorne ascendant. In White Harbor, Lord Wyman Manderly held feast in his damp stone hall. To the astonishment of visiting Freys, he named the pork pie before them, Lord Walder, carving thick slices while servants sniggered in sleeves. Yet behind the farce lay cunning. When a wind-bitten messenger in Martell colors stomped icy mud from boots, Wyman welcomed him with wine older than the wall itself. "Tell Prince Doran," the fat lord said, beard dripping grease, "that Manderly remembers. The North has debts to settle. When the sun meets the wolf, Lannister nights shall end." The messenger bowed. "I will carry that dawn back to my prince." With Storm's End secure and Roserad broken, the Martell host marched toward the Kingswood, leaving garrisons in each captured fort. Summer's last heat clung to the air, yet crisp scents of leaf fall blew in promise of winter soon to descend. Doran studied maps nightly, calculating supply lines, recruits, alliances. He slept little, dreamt less. Sometimes Oberon's laughter visited, more distant each time, yet hope lived. The realm, he saw now, was not a single crown but a tapestry of grievances. Tug one thread and the weave unraveled. Dorne had become that tug. Deep in the Red Keep, Cersei paced before the Iron Throne. Each dried pool of blood upon its blades seemed to wink at her. "You too shall bleed." She ordered Qyburn to wake every quartermaster. "We bar the gates. Fortify Maegor's hold fast. Summon every bannerman, not yet traitor." Her voice cracked at traitor, for the list had grown. Tarly, Rax, Heatherspoon, even silent Rowan. Send ravens to pike again. Promise the Greyjoy boy lordship over the Arbor if he scatters Nymeria's fleet. Pyromancers shuffled at her command to pour wildfire into forgotten vaults. But the alchemists whispered about her father's hoard, bigger than she knew, sleeping beneath the city like a green dragon. She listened with half-mad gleam. If Dorn toppled the crown would burn everything. On a cold crescent of moon, Doran's council met at the edge of the Kingswood. Soldiers ringed clearing with torches. Above, leaves rustled like dry applause. Ravens hooded in wicker cages croaked uneasily. The crown gathers 10,000 inside the city, Sir Damon reported. Walls bristle with scorpions, siege engines set upon the mud gate. A siege we expected, Doran said. But wildfire we may not withstand. We must crack the capital swiftly, or coax allies within to open postern gates. Nymeria unrolled fresh parchment from Arya of House Stark, signed in the hand of a girl calling herself only a friend, detailing secret tunnels beneath the dragon pit once used by smugglers. Uncertain map, Nymeria warned. Could be trapped. I will enter, Taine volunteered, eyes pools of milk blue calm. No, Doran answered, surprising even himself. Oberyn lost life in single stroke. I will not hazard you to a maze of Lannister steep. He turned to Obara. You lead infiltration, if you accept. Obara's grin flashed white, fierce. I will bring the city gate as a gift. Plans formed under flicker of torch. But before dawn could silver branches, a lone rider galloped in, horse foam flecked, shouting, "The North marches! Stark banners at Moat Cailin! Karstarks with them! Manderly men south through the neck, all for the Martells!" A hush fell, and then a roar, louder than any yet heard. Spears pounded shields, drums rolled, 1,000 throats cried promises. For the first time in 100 years, son and wolf would hunt together. Thus ended the first movement of Dorne's great march, the realm tilting like a chalice, too full of spiced wine. Summer waned, but hearts blazed brighter than any season. The story had only begun its long braid, fate's threads twisting through sand and snow alike. Ahead lay siegecraft and subterfuge, betrayals and baptism by dragon-green fire. Yet for one breathless moment upon the threshold of history, the realm paused as if to ask, when spears of Dorne thrust northward, would the world break or would it be remade? The answer slept inside every heartbeat of soldier and small folk alike, waiting for the pulse of drums upon the king's road, for hoofbeats echoing off cobbled streets, for a single gate to groan open beneath moonlight. And when that answer came, it would bear the taste of blood orange on the tongue, sweet, sharp, unforgettable. Mia Kandani Trisisent. Night gathered like smoke above the Kingswood and pressed against the torches that ringed the Dornish encampment, but Obara could see well enough by starlight. She wore boiled leather dyed the color of wet ash, a squire's jerkin over it to dull the gleam of buckles, and on her belt hung a single knife in place of her spear. Steel would draw eyes. A blade too long to hide would brand her enemy before she reached the city walls. She moved among her chosen 6, Stormlander deserters, who knew the Blackwater Delta as though it were their mother's milk. Behind them paced a white-muzzled cell-sail named Wendry Scan, once of King's Landing's harbor watch, whose mind held every sewer grate and midden chute from the Street of Flower to the Gate of the Gods. He smelled faintly of eel brine and fear. Fear was natural, Obara told him. It meant his blood remained honest. They slipped away from camp when the hunters feigned a wolf call 3 times. The forest received them in hush, dew-slicked roots beneath their felt-wrapped boots. Dawn would not break for hours, but the sky to the east bore a bruise-pale fringe. Obara counted heartbeats. She had memorized the rhythm of the guards who watched the postern above the Blackwater rush. 2 gold cloaks every 100 breaths. Torches changed on the hourglass. Tyrion Lannister's secret river tunnel gaped below that postern, a half-collapsed drain first cut to purge Maker's chamber pots 2 centuries ago. Rats owned it now, and moss, and memory. When they reached the riverbank, the blackwater stank of tide rot and broken ships. A mangled galley listed half submerged, its mast jutting like a dying heron's beak. Scan crouched near the waterline, prized free a rust-begrimed hinge, and pulled back an iron grill. Ankle-deep muck welcomed them. Obara tasted salt, felt it pull the moisture from her tongue. She followed Scan down the throat of the city. Above, the red keep silhouette rode the dark like a spired leviathan. Lightning flickered somewhere far inland, summer's last tantrum trying to remind the world that storms were its rightful heirs. But the city's harbor lamps muffled thunder with their orange glow. Inside the passage, their torches remained dark. They inched forward by touch along the right-hand wall, fingers tracing cracked mortar. Roof slime dripped with soft plops. Somewhere further in, a rat squealed, hungry for what might fall from the new guests. Scan counted paces under his breath. At 42, he stopped. Obara felt him reach overhead. A rusted ladder rang softly as he pulled. 3 rungs broke away, but the rest held. He climbed first, pushing up a square lid carved from weathered cedar. Cool night air whispered down. One by one, they emerged into a walled herb garden just outside the kitchen keep. Windows above glowed. Scents of pepper and sweet root drifted down. The garden, long untended, offered shadows enough. Obara motioned them flat as footsteps padded across flagstones. 2 scullions stumbled by, arms laden with hampers of dock leaves. They complained of the mountain's appetite, curses half swallowed for fear of being overheard. When they passed, Obara rose. Through the next arch lay the stables behind Mager's holdfast. She had studied every tilt courtyard from borrowed blueprints, a wheel of pathways converging on a single locked gate. Inside Mager's wall slept Tommen's royal sigil, boy king, plaything of the Queen Regent. Doran did not intend to spill the child's blood. Tommen Baratheon would be crownless, but breathing when the dust settled. Yet, to spare him, they had to reach him first. Obara glanced skyward. Clouds skidded across half-moon, shapeless. Gooded. She signaled Wendry Scan to lead the other 5 toward the hay barns. They would set barrels of lamp oil by each column and hold the spark until horns sounded from the north gate. She alone would move ahead, no spear. Only the knife and her brother's memory alive in her spit. She ghosted along a colonnade, boots silent. At the end of it, a pair of Lannister guards slouched, helms cocked back, sharing a wineskin. Their laughter grated. Obara palmed a pebble and tossed. It pinged against bronze. One guard turned, squinting. She slid around the opposite pillar, crossing the gap between torch halos. As the guard investigated, she circled behind, a heel to the back of his knee, forearm across his windpipe, knife nodding him to hush. Bloodless. She lowered him, eased the wineskin from limp fingers, waited for his partner to step closer in drunken curiosity. When he knelt, she clipped him behind the ear with pewter butt of the same wineskin. 2 unconscious men soon tied with their own belts. She swapped her leather jerkin for the first guard's half-cape and helm. Lannister crimson glimmered at her shoulders, incongruous atop her desert-born stride, yet enough to fool a distant glance. Inside the stable, the air smelled of oat dust and manure. Horses shuffled in stalls. One white courser nickered softly. Obara scratched its withers to calm it, lest noise betray them. Within a tack room, she uncovered saddlebags bulging with hardtack and dried plums, ready packs for swift royal flight if things went ill. She slit them open. Salt fish spilled worthless across straw.u. Royal flight now would taste like disappointment. A shout outside froze her. Bootsteps hammered. Obara doused lantern, slipped behind a stall. 2 officers barged in, spears angled. Search every loft, one ordered. Report of infiltrators. They checked stalls, one by one. Obara timed their pattern, right, then left cluster. When they neared her horse, She waited until the second officer bent to peer beneath the feed trough. Quick as at her strike, she seized his helm, slammed it hard into the wooden wall. He collapsed with a grunt. His partner spun. Obara buried her knife in his calf. He howled, spear clattering. She kicked him down, pressed blade to his throat. "Yield quiet," she hissed. "Speak and bleed." Terror widened his eyes. He nodded. She bound his mouth with stable wrap and hauled him behind sacks of oats. She dragged the other unconscious officer there too. Blood-dotted straw where the calf wounds seeped. She sprinkled sawdust to dull the scent. Beyond the stable, bells clanged. Alarm echoing up stairwells. Obara exhaled. The infiltration mattered less than timing. Taiyin by now would be inside the city as envoy, scheduled to parley at the Sept of Baylor with the High Sparrow. Doran's words, to split the crown's gaze off her gentle face while spear points slid beneath ribs. Taiyin's gentle face could slice marble. Obara trusted her. She must reach the Mudgate portcullis controls fast enough to raise them once the Dornish vanguard arrived. Scan saboteurs would light the hay barns then. Flames would draw gold cloaks off the walls. Chaos loves a wide berth. She slipped out the stable's far door into a narrow wind. High above, the Tower of the Hand rose still. Moonlight crawled over its windows like spectral fingers. Rumor said Qyburn conducted his experiments there. Obara bit down hatred. Every Dornish child heard stories. How the mountain raped their princess, crushed her babe as he laughed. Now that monster stalked again, undead sorcery behind lion banners. Oberyn's ghost cried vengeance, but vengeance waited. Victory first. She headed downslope toward a servant stair that traced inside the curtain wall. At each turn she encountered scullions fleeing confusion, lads bearing heavy buckets toward barracks, and few challenged her Lannister cloak. She answered curtly when pressed. "Oil spill in the granary. Orders from Sir Soya. Move." Fear freed her path. The stair ended in a vaulted chamber where gears as tall as war horses intermeshed. The Mudgate winch mechanism. Torchlight guttered. Two engineers in boiled leather argued over a jammed chain, unaware of infiltration. Obara approached with officer's swagger. "You there," she barked, voice roughened by wine. "Orders from Lord Lannister. Hold the gate down until further notice." One engineer scowled. "Gate's down already." "Then let no man raise it," she said. "But first clear that line. Patrols need unobstructed rotation." While they turned backs to wrestle the chain, Obara drew a wedge of steel she'd hidden in boot lining. She slipped it into the ratchet tooth, rigging mechanisms such that once lever pulled, the gate would only rise. Lowering would require removing wedge. Time they wouldn't have. She left with terse nod. Step 2. Free the lever when horns sounded. Behind her the engineers cursed sparking links. Above ground, bells still rang yet directionless. Fires now licked the kitchen chimneys. Wendry Scan had struck his spark. Orange ribbons danced against vaults. Gold cloaks sprinted past Obara, calling for buckets, ignoring her and assumed authority. Across the city, the people woke, drunkards to curses, infants to wails, harlots to laughter. King's Landing pulsed with panic, like an ulcer squeezed. Obara reached a parapet carved atop the outer wall. From there she saw the black water shining. Torches along the shore bobbed in columns, Dornish advance. She counted banners. The Lily of the Torrentine, the Basilisk of the Corge Isles, the 9-headed arrow of House Dane, all marching in silence. As center rolled Doran's cedar tower lit by lantern clusters, a burning constellation guiding wolves of the north. And beyond, across the King's Road Bridge, she glimpsed gray and white surging shapes. Stark men crossing the Trident, banners of the direwolf snapping in pre-dawn wind. Their timing had aligned by some miracle, or by Taiyin's whispered strings. Trumpets flared outside the mud gate. Obara sprinted back to the chamber, shoved the wedge deeper, and threw the main lever. Chains screeched, gears clanged, portcullis groaned upward. The engineers spun in shock. She elbowed one into the other, kicked a lantern out to extinguish, and dashed away. In the darkness behind her they bellowed alarms. But outside, the Dornish vanguard had already slipped through the yawning gateway like red silk across a blade. Silent spearmen fanned out, seizing ramparts. One tossed Obara a salute. She answered with grin. Street fighting erupted at once. Gold cloaks spilled from side alleys, forming ragged shield walls. Dornish spears pressed them, nimble. Sleep-fuddled small folk shrank into doorways. Somewhere a stable roof had collapsed under flame, sending sparks across rooftops. Obara navigated the swirl, ducking thrusts, answering with knife when needed. She angled toward Flea Bottom. There lay the great Sept Plaza, where Tyene would appear before dawn to address the faith militant. Tyene had insisted on going alone, draped in cream wool, lined with turquoise silk, hands bare to show she carried no weapon. Yet Obara knew sister's sleeves. As a child, Tyene had hidden scorpions in her bodice, to frighten Septa Daria. In those sleeves now, likely dusts rarer than sunrise that could still a bull. Obara cut through a shattered bakery. Flour drifted like ghosts. In the alley behind, a squad of faith militant blocked her path, drawn by bells. They wore 7-pointed stars upon mail. Their leader raised Morning Star. Stand, sinner. Obara kept hood lowered. In this city every soul sins. Let me pass. He moved to strike. She ducked under the swing, drove knife hilt into his sternum hard enough to drop him wheezing, kicked another zealot's kneecap, slashed hamstring, turned, vaulted over crates, vanished into tangle of roof lines. The militant shouted pursuit, but city's chaos fractured them. She lost them across a rope bridge strung between washerwomen's attics. She reached the edge of the plaza as dawn bled scarlet over the Sept's marble. Torches formed a ring around a simple wooden dais. On it stood Tyene, hair unbound, hands clasped. Across from her waited the High Sparrow in plain grey robes, flanked by armed brothers. He listened as she spoke. Words of mercy, of restoration, of crimes the crown had never confessed. The sparrow's eyes glinted. His flock murmured prayers. Obara slipped into a crowd of gawking townsfolk. Tyne's voice carried. She spoke of unborn daughters dashed against walls in sack of King's Landing, of Princess Eli's torn body left to rot. She spoke of Oberon's ribcage crushed like pomegranate beneath Clegane gauntlet. She named sins and offered absolution only through dismantling the house that birthed them. The Iron Throne has cut itself so often it no longer feels pain, she said, but the realm feels every drop of that blood. Doran bleeds with you. Let us stanch the wound. The High Sparrow raised gnarled hand. Silence fell. He regarded Tyene not as enemy, but as petitioner. Words will not topple steel, he said. Tyene uncurled her fists. 10 gold coins shone in each palm, each bearing profile of Joffrey Baratheon. These were minted in blood spilled at Blackwater, she told him. Blood of small folk who trusted King's Landing to shelter them. If the faith wishes, we can mint new coins bearing faces of justice instead. The sparrow accepted a coin, weighed it. Will you kneel to the 7 and renounce Viper's gods? Tyene, to Obara's amazement, did kneel. Yet her posture dripped confidence. I kneel to the afflicted, to the hungry, to the maimed. Guide us to them. As we feed Doran's march, we feed the faith. The sparrow surveyed the riotous streets. Smoke twisted behind walls. He gave a nod. Then the 7 will bless your passage. Obara exhaled. Gaining the faith's neutrality stripped Cersei of one more shield. Tyene stood, eyes meeting Obaras across throng for heartbeat, wordless triumph. Horn blasts echoed from the gate of the gods. Outside, stark columns arrived. Icewind banners rippled above spike shields. Jon Snow, named king in the north by rumor, rode at the fore astride a grey stallion. Beside him marched Lord Davos Seaworth and Lady Lyanna Mormont, astride a shaggy Garan. When the Starks saw Dornish sunspears holding the mud gate, confusion threatened, but Obara ran forward through swirling dust and cried the words Doran had prepared. "Sun welcomes snow. We march for the realm." Jon Snow dismounted, his eyes wary but hungry for allies. Obara clasped his forearm. Sand-scarred skin met frost-cracked callus. Behind him, the city trembled. Cersei had woken to wildfire in her gaze. From atop the royal septi, she watched the chaos. Dornishmen in her streets, Stark wolves at her walls, the faith militant withholding arms, small folk cheering a new army that promised bread. Qyburn whispered alternatives. She saw the green glint in hidden braziers and thought, "Let the world pay if it will not serve." Jaime attempted reason. "Sister, the boy can still rule. Bend enough to save him." Cersei spat. "Bend is break." Yet wildfire obeys no queen once loosed, and pyromancers are but children with too bright toys. In the tunnels beneath the Street of Sisters a leak had formed, an old clay jar fissured by rats. Flames from burning granary crawled through cracks. Obara recognized the sudden hush, a distant humph deep as creation's birth. She yanked Jon behind a stone buttress. The ground buckled. A plume of green fire erupted 5 streets away, hurling roof tiles sky high. Screams rippled outward. In that instant, loyalties crystallized. Small folk saw the crown torch its own. Soldiers faltered. A city decided. Jon Snow rallied Northmen to form bucket lines. Stark bannermen herded fleeing children to safety. Dornish spears reinforced collapsing houses, propping beams. The faith militant opened the septi's doors, turning pews into stretchers. Amid shared peril, unity forged itself. Cersei's gambit crumbled faster than her holdfast's foundations. Tar-black smoke poured across the Red Keep gardens. The Mountain, duty-bound, lifted Tommen beneath one arm and stalked for the stables. But fire found the hay already. Horses screamed. The courtyard became furnace. The Mountain advanced regardless, armor glowing dull red. Jaime charged after, golden hand useless but heart aflame. He intercepted Brother Qyburn, dragging Cersei toward a sally port. "Come," Jaime pleaded. "Surrender now. Spare the boy." Cersei's reply was a slap across his cheek. Qyburn hissed for haste. They descended toward a secret exit rumored under Maegor's Keep. But in the bowels of that passage, Tyene awaited. She had predicted Cersei would flee by the same path once used by Aerys's children. She leaned against a pillar, dust sparkling in torchlight. Cersei halted at sight of her. "Shh," she growled. Tyene dipped slight curtsy. "Viper's daughter, at your service." Qyburn shoved forward with dagger. Tyene exhaled powder from hidden vial. A cloud of pale violet dust bloomed. Qyburn gagged, his eyes filmed. He collapsed twitching, dagger clattering. Cersei recoiled, skirts tangling. Tyene advanced, palms raised. "Your son may yet live, but the throne is lost. Yield." Cersei's hand slipped into bodice, retrieving slender phial of green glass. Tyene recognized wildfire concentrate. She lunged. Cersei smashed phial, but Tyene caught wrist mid-arc. Glass shattered between them. Droplets sizzled. Tyene wrenched downward, forced Cersei to her knees, then cuffed her temple with hilt. The queen slumped unconscious. Boots thundered behind. Jaime arrived, sword drawn. For a breath-tiny considered duel, Oberyn's shade clamored. But Jaime lowered blade, surveyed scene, sister defeated, city burning. His shoulders sagged. "Take her," he said. "Alive," Tyaine promised. "For trial." Jaime surrendered sword. "Then end the fire before it takes the boy." Outside, Obara and Jon Snow coordinated bucket chains in the shadow of wildfire plumes. Doran's cedar tower rolled through Gate of the Gods escorted by Manderly infantry. Prince Doran himself, bolstered by Maester's drafts, addressed gathered crowds from his high seat, voice amplified by the hush following explosions. "People of King's Landing," he called, "I come not as conqueror but custodian. The crown has burned your homes, taxed your bread, spilled your blood. We offer bread, not ash, justice, not spite. Will you stand with us?" A murmur answered, then a roar. Bread wagons rolled in behind him, crusts steaming, fruit heaped high. Small folk surged, but Dornish guards distributed orderly, strict but kind. Years of hunger found hope warm as sunrise. In the Red Keep courtyard, Dornish medics confronted the mountain without fear. He stood among burning timbers, Tommen clutched like rag doll. Ash fell snow-like. Flames licked his greaves. No arrow could pierce the necromancer's creation, but memory could. Obara retrieved a long spear from fallen rack, tip coated with widow's blood. Venom Tyaine had distilled. She approached at angle, Tommen visible, terrified. She met the mountain's eyeless helm slit. Her mind whispered father's fate, her uncle's death. She steadied breath. Then Jon Snow appeared beside her, long claw in hand. "Together," he said. They advanced. The mountain growled, swung massive sword. Jon parried high. Obara darted low, sliding past Tommen's dangling feet. She thrust upward under gorget, where metal joined leather. The spear found gap. Venom glass smeared inside. The mountain roared, smoke belched from helm. He staggered. Jon seized moment, sliced hamstring. Giant knelt. Obara ripped spear free, stabbed again into exposed armpit. Venom worked. The mountain's howl guttered into bubbling rasp. He toppled backward, dropping Tommen. Jon caught the boy, pulled him safe. The monster convulsed, green fire flickering in visor as if wildfire devoured him from within. At last he lay still, steam rising. Tommen wept, clung to Jon's cloak. Obara knelt. "Your grace, realm needs peace. Will you permit it?" The boy nodded through tears. The wildfire blazes were dying under, combined effort of North and Dorne. Dawn brushed the eastern sky with rose gold. Bells tolled again, not alarm but summons. In the throne room, shards of shattered windows glittered like emerald teeth. Doran was carried to base of the Iron Throne, which sat empty, its black blades reflecting lingering flames. Jaime entered carrying his unconscious sister, Tine, beside him. Jon Snow escorted Tommen. Lords Manderly, Gargillan, Rowan, and Blackmont gathered. The High Sparrow stood to bear witness. Small folk peered from gallery. Doran spoke, voice measured. "The Iron Throne has wounded itself upon its own cruelty. In this hour, let the realm choose healing." He turned to Tommen. "Your Grace, do you relinquish claim in exchange for life and sanctuary for your people?" The boy glanced at Jaime, at the smoldering city beyond broken doors, at the blood staining Obara's boots. He swallowed. "I do." Gasps rippled. Jaime closed eyes. Doran inclined head. "You shall live in the Water Gardens, a ward of Dorne, free from plot." He faced the assembly. "Who among us will steward the realm until a council of all kingdoms may convene?" Eyes drifted to Jon Snow. stark banner visible through sunset-colored smoke. The Northman shook head. "I came to avenge, not to rule." The High Sparrow raised hand. "The faith will bless a council, but will not wear a crown." Tyne's gaze settled on Doran's gout-swollen hands. He smiled sadly. "Too frail, and my people need their prince and Sunspear." Obara felt weight of spear in her grip. "Not I," she muttered. Then a woman stepped forward, Lady Nymeria of House Sand, cloak ash-speckled, eyes sharp. "The realm has known kings and queens enough," she said. "Let it know voices. Form a council of 7, one for each kingdom, and for the faith. Rule shared cannot corrupt so easily." "No." Murmus grew hopeful. Lord Wyman nodded. Jon Snow met Doran's eyes and inclined head. Doran lifted his palm. "So be it, until dragons hatch again or the gods send wiser monarch. Let the council guide us." Cheers erupted, raw, half disbelieving. In that thunderous sound, Obara heard the sandstorms of home, the howl of north wind, the hiss of wildfire dying. She heard Oberyn's laughter, distant yet pleased. She turned spear butt downward, grounded it on marble. Others followed, stark swords, river lord axes, Dornish spears, all resting tips upon the floor, an emblem of ceasefire. Outside, the sun climbed full and warm upon a city still shivering, but alive. Later, when ravens took flight bearing news to every holdfast, they carried more than proclamation. They carried the hush after tempest, promised that the realm might yet weave itself whole. They told of enemies who fought fires side by side, of a queen brought down not by steel alone, but by the judgment of those she scorned, of a boy king spared, and a throne ceded. They told of the day the sun marched north and met the wolf, and neither was devoured. In Sunspear, children would one day ask Ilaria why the prince had risked everything. She would answer that vengeance could be temperate, if guided by memory rather than rage. In Winterfell, those same ravens would reach Sansa Stark. She would read that her brother had chosen peace over crowns and smile through tears on snow-frosted ramparts. On the Arba, wayfarers would sing of Nymeria's sails chasing krakens from the Mander. In the Reach, farmers would find Dornish silver in their granaries, where taxes once stole grain. And in King's Landing, new gardens would grow where wildfire charred stone. The first lemons sprouting in sight of the Blackwater, yellow as the promise of a dawn unharmed. Years later, some would call it the Martell Revolution, others the Pact of the Seven, others still the Day of Spears and Snow. Scholars would argue what truly toppled the crown: Oberyn's death, Doran's patience, Cersei's despair, Wildfire's betrayal, or the moment a boy laid down a throne none could hold. Yet those who were there would speak of simpler truths: bread handed out with kindness, water poured for the wounded, strangers lifting beams together, beneath a sky turned emerald, then gold. Obara kept her spear, but seldom used it again. She traveled restless, teaching small folk to defend themselves against bandits, telling them that power corrupts only when hoarded. Tyne served on the Council of 7, her sweet smiles terrifying any who considered corruption. Nymeria oversaw fleets that patrolled black seas for pirates, but also ferried grain where drought bit hardest. Jon Snow returned north, but each year sent south a single white rose as token. Winter's respect for desert bloom. Prince Doran, walking now with steadier step, thanks to citadel salves, presided over assemblies where lords once sworn enemies learned to compromise. He sat on a plain oaken chair, not a throne, and kept Oberyn's broken spear mounted above. Reminder that justice bought by blood must never be spent in vain. And somewhere beyond counting, in alley or keep, a lone minstrel played a new song. It spoke of sand and snow, of fire that did not consume, of a crown melted not by gold, but by the joined hands of many. The refrain lingered gentle as dusk across summer water, when the sun met the wolf at break of morn, and the snake shed tears for the rose's thorn. 7 swords were bound not in iron, but oath, and the realm was healed by the hearts of both. Mianamnab, Solesti. Autumn's first frost silvered the pomegranate groves around Sunspear. The morning the Council of 7 convened for the second time, and Prince Doran felt each chill tendril like a question raised against his bones. Though the Lords of Dorne believed the realm secured, cracks threaded the clay cup of victory, hairline fractures hidden by triumph's wine-red stain. Inside the hall of vaunted echoes, banners of 6 kingdoms. Dorne would not fly its own among equals, draped in a ring beneath a domed ceiling painted with Rhoynar waves. Only the grey direwolf of winter had failed to arrive in cloth. Jon Snow's envoys carried a folded pennon that would unfurl only after the North ratified full peace. The council table had no head. A polished oval of dark teak set upon 7 marble pedestals, like the petals of a stone flower. Tyne Martell reclined near Doran's left shoulder, quill poised above parchment. Expression serene, save for the mercurial flash of mischief that appeared whenever protocol frayed. Opposite them sat Sir Davos Seaworth, Jon Snow's voice in the south, fingers drumming like waves against hulls. Wyman Manderly, cheeks flushed from sea travel, flanked Davos, and beside Manderly perched Lady Willa Harlaw, Ironborn envoy recently arrived by truce galley, her stern profile carved as if from ironwood. Archmaester Marybald, sworn representative of the faith since the High Sparrow's death by winter fever, polished links heavy with garnet and copper, their clink soft as prayer. 2 chairs remained empty. Lord Garth Hightower of Oldtown, delayed by a brewing Reach-born insurrection, and a seat left symbolically vacant for the Riverlands until its war-torn hamlets chose a single voice. Doran cleared his throat. Old friends anew, the realm's harvest lies ahead of winter. Our first charge is grain. Manderly, unfolded ledgers. White Harbor ships carry 50,000 bushels of winter wheat past the Bight as we speak. Yet pirates plague the gullet. Half the holds may founder before Driftmark. Lady Harlaw raised a brow. Those pirates sail tattered kraken banners. My uncle Euron claims the narrow sea. He was not invited to this table. Tyne dipped quill, but did not write. Euron Greyjoy sold prisoners to slavers at least, and burned Tarth's villages. Dawn will not treat with drowned men, who drown others. None. What year? Davos spread weathered palms. The Ironborn in these halls show good faith. If Lady Harlaw secures her clans pledged to hunt raiders, White Harbor's grain may pass. Harlaw's gaze cut like a ship's prow. My clan holds the reading and my father's stepstones. Give me writ of mark under the realm seal, and I'll mount grey sails against the black. Manderly's jowls quivered in thought. Doran nodded. Done, provided you fly dawn lanterns on each mast. Nymeria's patrols will let you through. Nah, it is coffee. Will scratched. Compromise hardened into ink. Yet compromise could not feed empty coffers. When Archmaester Marybald placed a sealed letter embossed with a ship and coin, the hall chilled. The Iron Bank of Bravos demands repayment on loans extended to the late Queen Regent, Marybald intoned. 3 million golden dragons in arrears. Davos cursed softly. Tyne tapped parchment. One does not pay the Iron Bank in gold alone. They prefer certainty. Doran's fingers tightened on cane. Then we must offer collateral more valuable than coin. Predictability. A realm too stable to gamble against. But stability requires coin first, Manderly grumbled. The harvest tithes will not stretch. Harlaw's iron eyes glittered. Dragons buy debts. Across the sea Daenerys Stormborn builds fleet at Korth. Rumor says she'll land within a year. Secure her alliance and Bravos may risk waiting. Tiny exchanged glance with Doran. The nectar of dragons, blood of their murdered Princess Elia, hung like a hawk over every session. Yet Daenerys had never answered ravens. Doran breathed slow. I will ride again. If she values Ilia's memory, she will listen to her kin. Long before that letter could cross Salt, Obara Martell rode north along the God's Eye's mist-rimmed shores, a column of 200 Sunspear volunteers at her back. Their mission, to sweep bandits from the riverlands and open the King's Road to grain carts. September rains had swollen every brook to angry torrents. Humid fog clung to shields and brows, making spears slippery. Behind each ridge, sparrows, refugees turned brigands, stripped orchards bare. Small folk begged for food one day, slung arrows the next, driven by hunger rather than malice. Obara ordered her men carry double rations. She paid for harvests instead of taking them. In barter towns like Pennytree, she left silver coins stamped with the sun and spear, instructing elders to found communal granaries. At dusk outside Fair Market, Obara met a crownless knight in rust-flecked plate holding the bridge with 30 followers. He hailed her with a flourish of a chipped antlered helm. Sir Lyle Craighall, once bannerman to the Lannister host, shattered on Weeping Bay. He did not seek revenge. He sought pay. Obara tossed him a purse. Guard the bridge for merchants, not for plunder. Every wagon that passes unmolested earns another purse next moon. Craighall lifted visor, revealing a bruised pride rather than greed. I've no love for suns and snakes. You have less for starvation. Obara replied. Choose. He chose. As word spread of sun-stamped silver buying swords, more hedge knights drifted to Obara's banner. A sellsword captain from Pentos, a gaggle of restless Tully men-at-arms. Even a disgraced maester offered parchment skills in exchange for steady food. Thus, a patchwork host knitted itself across war-shredded fields, not by oath, but by the oldest contract, bread. When Obara reached the banks of the Blackwater Rush 2 months later, her 200 had become 2,000. Outside Maidenpool, they met the remnants of Lord Mooton's levy, ragged yet proud men who'd lost lands to the mountain's depredations. Their captain pressed a blood-speckled banner featuring a mermaid into Obara's hands. Swim or drown, he said. We'd rather swim beneath a new sun. Obara laughed, a sound like flint on steel. Then let's carve a river worth swimming. While battlefields shifted to rebuilding, the politics of memory proved trickier. In King's Landing, Nymeria sand dragged, shattered stones from wildfire ruins, with sleeves rolled and hair kerchief tied. She commanded gangs of stonemasons and seamstresses alike. Each child of Flea Bottom who could lift a trowel received bread and copper. Where Maegor's old granary once brooded, she envisioned an open market ringed by lime-washed porticos. Yet not all small folk welcomed change. In one alley, a skull-masked preacher railed that Dornish rule meant Rhoynar idols and foreign whoring. Crowds gathered, fists clenched. Nymeria ascended a barrel. She did not silence him. She asked for his hammer. Bewildered, he handed it over. She smashed the barrel beneath her, turning staves into splinters, then built a child-sized footbridge across a sewage ditch with them. Words build wind, she told the crowd. Wood builds crossing. Women cheered. Children dashed across the bridge. The preacher lost his following before nightfall. Inside the Red Keep's repurposed throne room, now stripped of jagged seat and refloored in plain cedar, Nymeria planted lemon trees in clay pots at each corner. The scent masked lingering smoke. Tommen Baratheon, pale but curious, helped her water them. He asked where kings sat now. She led him to the council's oval table and let him trace grain lines with curious fingers. Here, she said, a boy may sit and listen until he grows. Far to the east, across the poisoned waters of Slaver's Bay, the blood-burnt sands of Meereen bore witness to different fires. Daenerys Targaryen, breaker of chains, read Doran Martell's latest letter aboard her flagship Wind's Song. Autumn winds fluttered parchment, each sentence braided past and present. Ilia's name shone like a black pearl on white. She called her council, Tyrion Lannister, Sir Barristan Selmy Younger in spirit for his white beard, Missandei of Neath, and Daario Naharis, whose smirk masked suspicion. Tyrion poured arbor gold, scanned letter, and whistled low. Prince Doran offers harbor rights in Sunspear, funds for your soldiers, and formal acknowledgement of your claim. Daario twirled dagger, or a gilded cage, if you fail. Barristan scowled. Doran of Dorne is prudent above all. He would not risk his realm for false promise. Tyrion looked up, mismatched eyes sly. Cersei has fallen, Tommen spared. A council steers Westeros. If the dragon lands now, some will hail her deliverance. Others will fear tyrant returned. Timing is meat in the stew. Daenerys folded letter. Then we sail first to Dorne. Let those who remember Elia judge her niece. Winter's breath crept overnight on the neck, rimming reeds with hoarfrost that crackled beneath direwolf paws. In the Crannog Man keep of Greywater watch. Mira Reed listened to the marsh. Ravens whispered of young Aegon. Griff, some called him, landing at Storm's End with the Golden Company. Whether he were Rhaegar's son or Lysini, impostor mattered less than the sellsword's discipline. 50 war elephants plodded west, and reached Lord Starved of Tyrell command, bowed to his dragon-bright sigil, red three-headed beast upon black. Jon Snow had ordered no southern advance yet. The north must heal, he said. But the world would not wait for scars to seal. Thus Mira slipped into a canoe and paddled north through icy fog, carrying a message to Bran stark beyond the wall. If the last Greenseer still dreamt, his dream now summoned him south again. While I was once... In Old Town, Lord Garth Hightower finally left his Hightower seat. He reached Sunspear on a sloop named Candlemark, grim news in tow. His nephew Leighton had been found stabbed beside a cask of Arbor Red. A hooded brother of the faith had taken blame, but rumor accused red priests preaching the lore of light. Religious sparks threatened to ignite the Reach's parched distrust. At council, Hightower's lined face tightened. If the Council of Seven cannot shield worshippers, we built nothing. Tyene slid silk across her quill. Shield, yes, but faith must govern their own zeal. Archmaester Meribald frowned. Violence in the Reach may spread, if not curbed. I propose a concord of temples. Each faith sends magistrates under council oversight. Crimes judged by mixed tribunal. Lady Harlaw croaked a laugh. 7 gods, drowned god, red god, old gods, new gods. Need we seat them all? Doran's smile was tired but warm. Better many chairs than many graves. So parchment birthed the concord, though ink barely dried when ravens shrieked from the east. Euron Greyjoy had taken Dragonstone in midnight assault. Burning pitch rained from trebuchets. Loyalists fled. Now the Kraken sat, where dragons once hatched, an omen too dark to ignore. Nymeria convened Emergency War Council. Inside Dragonstone's vacated map room, table once carved by Aegon, the Conqueror now scorched with Kraken brands. She traced the northern sea lanes with ebony nail. He blocks the narrow sea here. Our grain fleets round the Dornish coast, but Stormlander fisheries feed Half-King's Landing. Now, Bell, the leaders Durbe. What did he do to us? Obara slammed fist. I will drive a spear through his eye. Manderley coughed. Ships first. My Lord Stannis left galleys scuttled near Claw Isle. Raise them, and we may outflank. Lady Harlaw pursed lips. I pledged to hunt Kraken pirates, not family war. Yet Euron threatens my people. Give me command, and I'll split his fleet. Tyen laced fingers. And what payment? A seat at council for the Iron Isles, Harlaw answered. Not under Kraken tyrants, but as free captains in realms weave. Doran assented. Thus, within a Senite black-hulled redrawn longships, flying seahorse sigils, joined Nymeria's crimson armada. They sailed under dark moon, slipping between tidal shoals to anchor off Dragonstone's lee. Euron's watchmen never saw the sappers crawl the seaward caves. Oil-soaked pitch ropes wound like serpents. At dawn, Dragonstone's western spur burst in pillars of fire. The Kraken awoke too late. Chain boom yanked across harbor trapped his outriders. Arrows rained, and from bluff above Nymeria signaled assault. Greyjoy decks churned as seahorse raiders leapt, axes flashing. Dornish marines followed, spears braced. Euron himself emerged, hair writhing like ink in wind, horn of dragonbinder clutched. He blew. A sound like tearing souls rippled skyward, but no dragon came. Only wheeling gulls. Nymeria met him on fallen gangplank, curved blade against Valyrian steel axe. He laughed, lips flecked red. A daughter of sand come to drown. She parried low, twisted, slashed inner thigh. Euron grunted, swung wide. Plank pitched. She feinted left, then plunged dagger beneath his ribs. He hissed, grinning still, seized her throat. Water slapped hull, both slipped. Nymeria bit his thumb, tasting copper and salt. An iron-born arrow found his shoulder. Obara from the shore had loosed it. Eyes hawk-bright. Euron staggered. Nymeria ripped blade upward through gut. His grin finally faltered, replaced by wonder. Then emptiness. He toppled into surf. Sea swallowed him without splash, as though claiming its mischievous son. Dragonstone fell. Nymeria's forces scoured vaults, freeing Stormlander prisoners. Among them emerged a tattered bard carrying warhorn segments, dragonbinder broken. Its promise of monster mastery ended in rusting shard. Back in King's Landing, Tommen discovered kittens beneath a toppled spice wagon and carried them into council chambers against protocol. While Tyen chided the boy, Doran watched him stroke their fur. The moment softened the hall. Manderly fed the kittens scraps. Hightower chuckled. Davos, remembering his own son, whispered that mercy grows sturdy roots when planted early. Yet war still brewed on distant horizons. On Maiden's Day the Raven Tower rang thrice. Urgent summons. Golden Company banners sighted near Bitterbridge, carving path toward the Blackwater. The Sellswords marched under command of a young man, bearing Valyrian features and the name Aegon Targaryen. Stormlanders flocked to him, drawn by Field of Fire legends. Council arguments flared. Barristan Selmy, newly arrived with Daenerys at Sunspear's harbor, vouched for the Queen's claim. Tyrion smirked behind Goblet. 2 dragons circled above the pavilion. Drogon and Rhaegal, Viserion lost to Meereen's sky in earlier battle. Their shadows darkened citrus groves and sent green-blood crocodiles diving for cover. Daenerys entered the hall clad in white lion skin trimmed with red. Her gaze swept the table. I come to join, not to conquer. But I will not yield my birthright to pretenders. Doran rose, cane steady. In Dorne your mother found refuge. Now her daughter finds allies. Yet blood alone cannot rule. Will you sit among 7 equal voices? Her jaw tightened. I will sit, but the dragons behind me cannot be caged. A council needs no cages, Davos said. Only doors wide enough for wings. So, seat 8 was added. Temporary, they said, for the mother of dragons until a great moot could weigh all claims. But some glimpse portents, the table's circle no longer perfect, more eyes at war with fewer chairs every moon. Deep in winter forest east of Last Hearth, Giant whites rose from snowdrifts, blue eyes burning like lost stars. Tormund Giantsbane, beard encased in ice, hacked one apart inside ring of braziers. Jon Snow watched flame reflect on steel. He had thought the Night King's fall ended the dead, but new whispers said necromancy lingered. The war for the realm might yet turn north once more. Letters flew to Doran, to Daenerys, to all. Steel and dragon fire would be needed still. Daenerys listened in flicker of council torches. I march north, the Golden Company may seize south. Tyrion sipped wine. The game grows more pieces than board. Prince Doran cupped a lemon in swollen hand, breathed its clean scent. Then we must stretch board to fit. He proposed the march of roads, a network of fortified way stations, every 30 miles from the Arbor to White Harbor, provisioned by rotating local levies, each garrison hosting Ravenloft and healers. Merchants could travel without escort. Soldiers could redeploy swiftly. Obara volunteered to oversee construction north of Blackwater. Manderley took the neck. Daenerys promised dragon patrol above supply lines, a living banner none would dare raid. Funding remained thorn. Tyene hatched scheme. Mint new coin. The Dawn Dragon, bearing 7-pointed star on obverse, dragon and sun entwined on reverse. Half copper, half steel, stamped in King's Landing. Mints reopened with wildfire warp furnaces. Exchange rate favored small folk, hoarded gold taxed. Iron Bank balked until Nymeria sent chests of Euron's captured treasures, sapphires big as quail eggs, Myrish rubies, coils of Valyrian chains. Braavos accepted treasure in lieu of interest. Letters of credit flowed again. Winter carved canyons of snow through the Vale's high passes, yet one rider braved blizzards. Sansa Stark in fox fur cloak, eyes keen with northern dawn. She met Jon at Winterfell's Godswood, red leaves, rattling like brittle parchment. He told her of council seats and dragons. She listened, then spoke quiet but firm. The North's freedom must stand, but alliances could weave without chains. When she rode south weeks later, she carried carved weirwood wands, a northern token of trust, to gift each council member. In Sunspear she placed one in Tommen's hands. The boy thrust it in his lemon pot so winter might share soil with summer. Doran smiled at the symbolism, but Barristan looked uneasy. Young Aegon still advanced. Battle finally came on Candlemas Eve near the ruins of Ashford. Meager daylight flickered behind clouds, smoke from cottages raised by sellsword outriders. The council's coalition, Dornish spears, Northmen archers, reached levies under Hightower, seahorse pikes. Lined along a low ridge, crimson and gray and green banners intermingling. Above, Drogon roared, wings beating snow into swirling devils. Golden Company drums answered, elephants armored in black, pikes bristling forest thick. Aegon rode at their fore astride pale charger, wearing Rhaegar's rubied breastplate reclaimed from the trident's mud. His hair silver as new frost, eyes indigo. Jon Snow and Daenerys met between lines under white flag, wind tugging cloaks. He saw in the boy Clemens to cousin's blood if rumors true. Yet ghosts of cry for Ned Stark's avenged daughter whispered caution. Daenerys challenged Aegon to parley. He refused, citing prophecy. The dragon's 3 heads. He claimed he was one, she unworthy. Lines reformed. Shields locked. Obara knelt, pressed Oberyn's spear tip to ground, whispering that ancestors might guide her. Nymeria stood at ridge crest wearing iron mask, carved as viper, signaling shipborne catapults hidden on Manderley River barges behind enemy flank. Tyne lingered in healer tents, satchels of pale dust shade for wounded mercy. Horn blast. Arrows rose like swarms of starlings. Elephants thundered uphill, snow spraying from enormous feet. Stark archers fired flaming arrows into pitch-soaked hay sleds. Veil slingers pelted mahouts. An elephant crashed, tusks snapping. Infantry clashed, spear points piercing quilted jacks, sellsword yells blending with Dornish war cry. Jon advanced at head of Karstark axemen, Longclaw singing. Aegon met him, rubies blazing. Steel rang. Jon's shoulder jawed, dragon steel parried, sending sparks. Obara intercepted a sellsword, lunging at Jon's flank, spear sliding through mail rings. They fought back to back, wolf and viper. Above, Daenerys circled on Drogon, holding Rhaegal in reserve to guard supply train. She unleashed fire only where elephants broke lines. Scorched paths allowed council troops to press. Yet Golden Company discipline held. They reformed behind shields, closing gaps. Suddenly their rear detonated, flaming boulders from camouflaged river barges. Catapults lobbed wildfire jugs salvaged from King's Landing caches. Green blossoms roared, consuming siege engines. Nymeria's gamble. Trust the pyromancer's small vials, not hidden vaults. Morale shattered. Elephant rears stampeded into friendly spears. Aegon, seeing route, spurred toward Jon once more. He swung Valyrian blade Blackfire, recently unearthed, from high guard. Jon ducked, riposted, slicing Pauldron's strap. Aegon retreated. Obara thrust, nicking horse. Steed reared. Aegon fell. She pinned him with spear but hesitated. Kill Kinnevelia? Jon placed hand on her shaft. Spare him. Truth of birth still unproven. Aegon looked up, eyes wide with fear and fury. Guards dragged him off, shackled. Golden Company broke. Some fled south. Others knelt. High towers' trumpets signaled cease. Smoke drifted, snow hiss melting where wildfire still sputtered. Victory forced new questions. Council reconvened in Ashford's half-ruined septite. Daenerys demanded custody of Aegon. Doran insisted neutral trial. Tyrion advised caution. A dead pretender becomes martyr, a living one, leverage. Sansa suggested hiding him in Citadel until Maesters proved lineage by blood sorcery. Maribald balked at sorcery. Conflict threatened. Tommen, seated on cushion between lemon trees carted from capital, spoke timidly. Could we not ask him what he wants? Silence. Aegon, bruised, escorted forward, regarded council with defiance. But as they questioned, cracks opened, memories of exiled tutors, of strategy drilled by sellsword commander named Griff, of dream to free realm from Cersei's cruelty. When he learned Cersei had fallen and small folk now ate regularly, purpose wavered. He accepted probation, swear blade to protect March of Roads for 1 year, then seek judgment. Daenerys agreed reluctantly, for dragons still demanded blood, but prophecy bent. Winter deepened. Snowflakes drifted onto lemon leaves in King's Landing courtyard, startling kittens to pounce ghost prey. Sun and snow cohabited. Road stations rose, whitewashed inns flying multicolored ribbons. Davos letters boasted carts arriving from White Harbor in half the previous time. Bandits scarce. Obara's spears drilled as town guards, then marched on, leaving local recruits to defend. Dragonstone's forge, reopened, cast new plowshares from melted kraken axes. Lady Harlaw ferried these upriver, selling at cost. Farmers who once feared Ironborn hailed seahorse banners. In the Reach, bandit lords styling themselves Thorn Knights attacked an inn, killing stewards. Within a fortnight, a combined patrol of Dornish outriders and Hightower crossbowmen dismantled their tower. Survivors tried to claim Lannister reprisal, but Jaime, now quiet lord of Casterly Rock, sent letter disavowing any revanchist cause. He remained in the west, overseeing mines reopened to fund orphan houses. Yet, The realm's healing left voids for older darkness. In the Frostfangs, free folk scouts reported ice spiders, bigger than hounds, stalking glaciers. At Hardhome's ruins, faint blue lanterns glimmered each moon's turn. Bran's ravens brought warnings. Dead dreams stir when living grow complacent. Council debated raising new night's watch. Manderley proposed each kingdom tithe convicts. Sansa countered that duty should not be punishment but honor. Finally they agreed. The watch would recruit volunteers with promise of land grants south upon completion. Ice for bread. Obara offered to train spearwives there. She missed the hush of snow beneath twilight anyway. Spring edged nearer. Wild peach blossoms painted valleys of the trident pale coral, echo of Dornish dunes. On festival day marking a year since Cersei's fall, people gathered at the capital's rechristened dawn market. Musicians played, children chased perfumed bubbles, bakers sold lemon cakes, shaped like dragons and wolves entwined. Sansa spoke of unity. Nymeria unveiled a statue of a barefoot girl lifting loaf to starved soldier. Anonymous, symbol of smallfolk courage. Archmaester Maribald blessed wells, new seven-sided fountains, each representing realms' kingdoms, and the faith at center. At dusk, torches lit the steps of the old Red Keep terrace. There, beneath arch of lemon branches and weirwood wands, Prince Doran, leaning less on Cain now, addressed thousands. A year ago wildfire lit these streets. Tonight lanterns light them instead. Remember the smell of smoke so you may cherish the scent of blossom. Remember the bite of hunger to savor bread. His words washed over silent crowd. Wind carried them along Blackwater. Dragons overhead executed lazy spiral, their bellies glowing gold in torchlight. Jon Snow stood with Daenerys at parapet, murmuring of north and south bridged. He worried still of ice beyond wall. She listened, promising wings if needed. Tyne watched from shadows, hands folded. She held tiny phial of dust shade unused, reminder that mercy can mean withholding knife. She slipped it into pocket and turned to greet Tommen, who offered her kitten just weaned. She accepted, letting future purr against palm. Obara leaned on spear, surveying throng. She caught echo of laughter like her father's somewhere, maybe her own. Then exhaled contentment brittle but real. Nymeria, clothes still smelling of sea salt, raised lantern skyward. In that glow she saw a reflection of 8 council seats merging into circle without edges. Promise that power shared might yet endure. Far beyond horizon, ships bearing red sun, pierced by spear, sailed upriver to Maidenpool, laden with glass and citrus. Others flew direwolf's gray, loaded with furs southbound. Trade routes thrummed. Ravens carried gossip, not pleas. Poets called age the quiet balance, still fragile, woven from lemon branches and ice crystals. But stories need storms. Bran's last raven arrived on new moon. Patterns in northern sky shifting, ancient lights stirring. He spoke of a heart of ice, still beating beneath shattered wall of night, a wound not yet cauterized. Council would meet again. Dragons might again breathe flame on snow. Yet for this single festival night, realm inhaled in peace. Petals swirled on warm breeze, mixing peach and lemon scents. Fiddlers struck joyous chords, and dancers twirled in circles shaped like the table that saved them. Round, unbroken, always turning. The kittens chased petals. Children followed kittens. Laughter rose to dragons, dragons to stars. And the stars, old, patient witnesses, watched and wondered whether mortals, spears, and wolves had at last learned to raise roads stronger than swords.